Dear students, today we are going to discuss about the thalamus and the hypothalamus. First, we are going to see the features of thalamus. Thalamus is a large mass of gray matter located in the lateral wall of the third ventricle and the floor of the lateral ventricle. First, we will check that. See, this is our third ventricle, and these two are the two lateral ventricles. See, right side lateral ventricle, left side lateral ventricle. This view, this is what the coronal section of the brain, coronal section, which divides the brain into anterior part and posterior part. So this is the coronal section of the brain, and this is the lateral ventricle, right lateral ventricle. This one is the left lateral ventricle, and see here, this is the third ventricle. We are having only a single third ventricle. Okay. Now this colored part, this is what the location of the thalamus. Okay, below that here comes the hypothalamus. We'll discuss the hypothalamus later. So anyway, this is the thalamus. So this thalamus, which forms the floor of the lateral ventricle, correct, and it forms the lateral wall of the third ventricle. See, right lateral wall, left lateral wall. So two lateral walls. Okay, so first point is clear. It forms it's a gray matter mass, and it forms the lateral wall of the third ventricle and floor of the lateral ventricle. And it is having anterior end and posterior end. Then four surfaces: superior, inferior, medial, and lateral surface. We'll check it. See, it is having two ends. See, this is the anterior end, which is comparatively narrow, and posterior end, which is broad. Okay, so anterior and posterior ends, two ends. Then four surfaces. See how? See, here comes the superior surface. This line represents the superior surface. Then inferior surface, lateral surface, medial surface. Okay, so superior surface, inferior surface, medial surface, lateral surface. So four surfaces and two ends. See, this is what the thalamus. See, here comes the anterior end, which is comparatively narrow, posterior end, which is broad. Then surfaces, here comes the medial surface. Now we can see the superior surface properly. Then here comes the lateral surface, then inferior surface. It is shown here in this diagram. So this is what right and left thalamus. So features are clear. It is having two ends, anterior end and posterior end. Then superior surface, inferior surface, medial surface, and lateral surface. We already told you anterior end, which is narrow. That point I already told you. Then posterior end, which is broad, and it is known as pulvinar. See this area. Okay. Superior surface, which is divided into lateral ventricular part and medial extraventricular part. What is meant by that? You see. See here in this area, the diagram. This is the thalamus. Okay. See this lateral part, which is related to this ventricle. So ventricular part, and here this medial part, it is known as the extraventricular part. So lateral ventricular part and medial extraventricular part. So superior surface, that's all about the superior surface, lateral ventricular part and medial extraventricular part. Then inferior surface, which is related to subthalamus and hypothalamus. I already told you below that here comes a hypothalamus. So inferiorly it is related to hypothalamus and subthalamus. So here comes the hypothalamus. This one is a subthalamus. Then medial surface, medially it is related to third ventricle. Now this is the thalamus. Okay, so medially it is related to third ventricle. Laterally it is related to this structure. It is known as the internal capsule. Okay, so lateral surface, it is related to posterior limb of the internal capsule. So these are some of the features of those surfaces. Superior surface is divided into two parts: lateral ventricular part and medial extraventricular part. Check it again. See, lateral ventricular part, medial extraventricular part. Inferior surface, which is related to hypothalamus and the subthalamus. Then medial and lateral surface. Medial surface is related to third ventricle. Lateral surface is related to internal capsule. Okay, so features of those poles and surface are clear. Now, this thalamus is having some white matter fibers or some fibers. Okay, what are they? external medullary lamina and internal medullary lamina. External medullary lamina, which is related to, which cover the lateral surface, that's all. But the internal medullary lamina, which divides the thalamus into three parts: anterior, medial, and lateral. We'll check it. See, this is the thalamus here, separated thalamus, anterior and posterior end. Now, inside the thalamus, there we are having Y-shaped internal medullary lamina. See, it's a part of, it's a white matter piece. Okay, this white matter divides the thalamus into three parts. See, this is the anterior part with one nucleus, anterior nucleus. This is the medial part, and this is the lateral part. Okay, so it means this thalamus is divided into three parts by one Y-shaped white matter. White matter means, what is that white matter? Nothing but axons. Okay, myelinated axons. Now, gray matter. See, that gray matter means here these three: anterior part, medial part, lateral part. Gray matter is having some nucleus. Already told you about the anterior nucleus. See, anterior nucleus which is located in the anterior part. See, this is the anterior part. This anterior part is having some nucleus, known as the anterior nucleus, and the medial part is having some nucleus, medial nucleus. Okay, then lateral part mainly we are going to see. So here in the anterior part, anterior nucleus, medial part, medial nucleus. Then this lateral part, which is divided into dorsal and ventral. See, lateral part is divided into dorsal nucleus and ventral nucleus, first division. See, this is this upper part, this is a dorsal part, and this lower part, this is a ventral part. This ventral part, which is again divided into three. See, ventral nucleus is divided into anterior, intermediate, and a posterior group. See, this is the anterior group. VA means ventral, anterior. Anterior, then here this is the intermediate or lateral, ventral, lateral. Okay, then this is a posterior. Now, this posterior is again divided into two: lateral and medial, ventral. Okay, posterior group is further divided into posterolateral and posteromedial. See, ventral, posterolateral, ventral, posteromedial. See, ventral group, ventral nuclei again divided into ventral anterior, ventral intermediate or ventral lateral, then ventral posterior. Ventral posterior is again divided into posterolateral and posteromedial. We'll check it. See, thalamus, which is divided into three. Okay, anterior, medial, and lateral. Lateral is divided into dorsal and ventral. Okay, see, dorsal and ventral. Okay, this ventral is again divided into ventral anterior, ventral lateral, ventral posterior. Where ventral anterior, ventral lateral, ventral posterior. Now, this ventral posterior is again divided into posteromedial and posterolateral. Posteromedial and posterolateral. Posteromedial means this area, it is known as ventral posteromedial, and here this lateral part, it is a ventrolateral. Now, this dorsal part, it is again divided into three parts, three nuclei. What are the lateral dorsal nucleus, lateral posterior nucleus, and pulvinar nucleus? Okay, lateral dorsal, this is this area, this is a lateral dorsal, and lateral posterior, then this broad portion, that one is a pulvinar nucleus. So these are the nuclei seen in the thalamus. Okay, thalamus, it is divided into anterior part, medial part, and lateral part. Anterior part is having some nuclei together known as the anterior nucleus. Like that, the medial part is also having some nuclei together known as the medial nucleus. Then mainly this lateral part, it is divided into dorsal and ventral. Ventral is divided into anterior, intermediate, posterior. Posterior is again divided into posterolateral and posteromedial. Dorsal is divided into lateral, dorsal, posterior, then pulvinar. Then inside the lamina, there we can see some nuclei. Those nuclei are known as intralaminar nuclei. Inside the lamina means, I see here. Here inside, this is a white-shaped lamina. Okay, inside the lamina, those nuclei. Centromedial nucleus, then midline nuclei, reticular nuclei. That name is here. Now we are going to discuss about the connections, afferent and efferent fibers. Okay. Afferent fibers means towards the thalamus. What are the fibers running towards the thalamus? Exproceptive and proprioceptive impulses, which is the thalamus from medial lemniscus, spinothalamic tract, and trigeminothalamic tract. See, medial lemniscus means it's a bundle of fibers seen inside the brainstem. Then spinothalamic means from the spinal cord to the thalamus. Trigeminothalamic means from the trigeminal nucleus to the thalamus. Okay, so trigeminothalamic tract or fibers, spinothalamic tract or fibers, medial lemniscus means bundle. Okay, medial lemniscus. So this through these three types of bundles or through these three bundles, this extroceptive and proprioceptive impulses reaches the thalamus. We'll check it. See this one. These fibers reaches the thalamus through these three bundles: medial lemniscus, spinothalamic tract, and trigeminothalamic tract. No other way you have to by heart these names. Okay. So these are the three bundles. Through these bundles, this extroceptive and proprioceptive impulses reaches the thalamus. Now, sensation of taste reaches the thalamus through solitariothalamic fibers. See, taste through the solitariothalamic fibers. So you have to by heart this diagram, then it will be easy to explain the connections. Then, visceral impulses. Visceral impulses means impulses from the organs reaches the thalamus from the reticular formation. See, reticular formation. From the reticular formation, some fibers reaches the thalamus, which carries the impulses from the organs. So visceral impulses reaches the thalamus from the reticular formation. Then visual and auditory impulses reaches the medial and lateral geniculate bodies. See, hearing and vision reaches the medial and lateral geniculate body. From there, it reaches the thalamus. Then olfactory impulses reaches the thalamus through amygdaloid complex. See, olfactory from the nose to reaches the amygdaloid body. From there, it reaches the thalamus. Then thalamus receives numerous connections from the cerebral cortex, cerebellum, and corpus striatum. Okay, it reaches or it gets some fibers from the, imagine this is the cerebral cortex, the sulcate area. So the sulcate area are not there in this diagram. So it gets fibers from the cerebral cortex, then cerebellum, and caudate nucleus. Caudate nucleus means not only from the caudate nucleus. See the word corpus striatum. Corpus striatum means caudate nucleus and lentiform nucleus together known as the corpus striatum. Okay, so from the caudate nucleus and lentiform nucleus. So these are the afferent fibers or fibers running towards the thalamus. See, extroceptive and proprioceptive through these three bundles to reaches the thalamus. Then taste, solitary thalamic tract. Sorry, nice. Taste through the solitary thalamic tract, it reaches the then visceral impulses from the reticular formation, it reaches the thalamus. Then auditory and visual impulses through the medial and lateral geniculate body. Then olfactory impulses through the amygdaloid complex, it reaches the thalamus. Then it gets this thalamus with some fibers from the cortex and corpus striatum. Okay, so connections of afferent fibers are clear now. The efferent fibers. It gives fibers to the cerebral cortex through thalamocortical projections or thalamic radiations. From the thalamus, these fibers reaches the cerebral cortex. Okay, those fibers to the known as what? Thalamocortical projections or thalamic radiations. Then, not only to the cerebral cortex, it also gives some efferent projections to the corpus striatum, hypothalamus, and the reticular formation. See, it gives some fibers to the corpus striatum. Corpus striatum, I already told you, it includes the caudate nucleus and the lentiform nucleus. So it gives some fibers to the corpus striatum, then reticular formation, then hypothalamus also. Okay. So these are the some of the important connections of this thalamus, afferent fibers and the efferent fibers. Okay, then it acts as a function. What is it? It acts as a relay station. Thalamus main function act as a relay station. So the remaining details of the thalamus that you have to read. In the next class, we are going to discuss about the hypothalamus. Okay.